Hello, my name's Dan from Brooks & Kirk and welcome to this video. Here at Brooks & Kirk we aim to provide educational content for people that are working in the further education market or thinking of joining the further education market. Now in this video today we are aiming to cover the roles and responsibilities within education and training. This is especially useful for anybody that's studying the Level 3 award in education training or the Level 4 certificate in education and training. So what is it that we're going to be covering? Well, we're going to be looking at 6 key distinct teaching roles. Now, I know the phrase teacher is very commonly used, but there's so many different subcategories beneath it. So this video we're going to break down 6 distinct key roles that you'll be coming across working in the sector. We're going to look at key responsibilities that we as educational practitioners need to be aware of, and look at why and when we as practitioners need to work with other professionals throughout our duties. There are of course some boundaries that we need to be aware of, so I'm going to explore professional boundaries and some personal boundaries that we all need to take note of as we conduct our duties. So, first role then is an instructor. Now, an instructor is an individual who tend to be given a syllabus or structure of lessons already. They tend to already be planned by somebody else or another company or organisation. So if I give you a classic example, a driving instructor, well, the DVLA have planned what these tests look like, and the DVLA have a syllabus that all instructors need to follow to ensure that all drivers are standardised. So they don't have to plan their own lessons. They kind of know what they're being taught and in what sort of order. Okay, so the next role is a lecturer. Now, often a lecturer is a highly skilled professional, maybe even consultants or people with doctorates. So obviously their time is precious, highly specialised in a certain skill. They often present information or research to a large group of people, often. You tend to find this more in the higher education university space than you do in FE, further education. Often though, lectures can be a bit one way, it's a presentation, a bit like what I'm doing now. There isn't really a huge opportunity for two-way discussion or exploring of topics, because you'd have people shouting all over the place in a lecture theatre and it just wouldn't work. Yeah, question and answer is often done, but in a controlled and limited way. If you already have an assessor qualification, you'll know what this is by now, but if you haven't, this is something you can look on our website. We do offer a range of assessor qualifications for people thinking of being an on-programme or an endpoint assessor. I'll just touch upon this though very briefly, because the key role of an assessor is to assess the competency of a learner in their workplace. So can they do the job? Also, an assessor will check the vocational knowledge of learners to make sure they know what they're talking about, really. All of this will be graded against formal assessment criteria in a qualification. So yeah, they'll be making judgment directly against those specifications. An assessor will need to give marks, grades, maybe pass or defer. Sometimes you need to go pass, merit or distinction, or give A, B, C or D, but more often than not it's just a binary pass or defer or pass, merit, distinction, more for our endpoint assessors. But they then need to give that feedback to the learner so that they can evolve and develop, and so they know what they did well at or what their areas of improvement are. An assessor needs to plan an assessment to fit the needs not only of the learner, if they've got additional requirements, but also their employer. If they are naturally doing activities at a certain point in time in the workplace, let's say they're doing manual handling in health and social care, for example, then an assessor could try to holistically combine what they're normally doing throughout to make it as efficient as possible. So they need to fit around the learner's needs and where they're at in their qualifications, but also the employers. The next role then is a coach. So a coach tends to teach a very specific skill set or a very targeted piece of learning. It's more than likely going to be short-term piece of intervention. Often if a learner's got a specific weakness in an area, then it might be something that a coach can support them with to become better at it. I've put that example there, handwriting, because that's probably something I could work on, to be honest. But yeah, handwriting coach would purely be there just to coach on the letter formation and structure and maybe cursive writing technique or whatever it is that they need. And once the handwriting has hit an approved standard, then they might move on to the next student learner. Another role then is a mentor. So a mentor will support learners over a much longer period of time usually, and it could be in a much wider breadth of different shortcomings that person might have. It could be things like study skills or candidates that are really suffering from low self-esteem or lack of confidence. It could be social, emotional, or any behavioural concerns. They might have a mentor for a longer period of time just to ensure that they are better included within teaching and learning lessons. Another role I'd like to discuss then is the role of a tutor. Now, a tutor often gives a recap on any previous learning that has happened. It's usually outside of formal scheduled lessons. So if a learner always has a lesson once a week on topic A, then they might have a tutorial on a Wednesday, the day after their scheduled learning. These are often accompanied and supersede lectures. If you've got a lecturer who hasn't got the time to focus with 250 learners, then a tutor might be delegated to ensure that that content has been truly understood by individuals. It's usually like one-to-one or small groups, just to make sure that students have enough time and opportunity to ask questions that perhaps they couldn't do when they're in a large lecture theatre. Right, that's looked at the roles then. Let's have a look now at some responsibilities. If you want to be notified of when we publish new content, just remember, hit that bell notification icon and you'll be the first to know when new content lands. So as a teacher, we will have to ensure that we enforce any organisational policies and procedures at whatever establishment that we're working at. So it could be uniform policy. Yeah, it happens, especially in like the construction sectors. You're going to need to have specific PPE. So you as a teacher, as a practitioner, need to ensure that happens. There could be a marking policy to state that, like with us, for example, that our tutors and assessors need to ensure that we feed back to learners within 14 days, 10 working days. There could be strict attendance policy. We could have a communication policy to manage learners' expectations, replying to emails within 24 hours, but not at weekends and evenings for the well-being of staff. Those sorts of policies could be in place. Teachers also have a responsibility to prepare and manage learning. Well, that's about planning lessons more often than not. I mean, yes, I know you don't have to have a nice formal lesson plan for absolutely everything that we're doing, but you need to have some sort of plan of what you're doing, whether you've got a nice elaborate presentation with a succinct series of resources. It needs to be in place. So it's producing those resources as well, or gathering them. If somebody else has produced them, we need to make sure that they're adapted to meet the needs of our learners. Other responsibilities is that to assess our learners and to keep records of progress, of attainment. So we need to plan that we're checking progress at relevant intervals or who might need additional support. We're going to need to record that somehow, whether that's spreadsheets or whether you have to use some elaborate database system that the organisation uses. Whatever tracking systems they implement, you're going to need to comply and follow that. This needs to be standardised so everybody is following the same rules in that organisation. As practitioners, we're always going to be working with other people. You know, we're not experts at everything, so we're going to need to call upon the skills of other professionals. You could have a team of teachers in the same department. Instead of everybody planning lessons for the same subject, you could have a group working approach where one teacher plans term 1, the other teacher plans term 2, and you all collaborate so you've all got the resources for that department. We've got to be receptive and willing to learn from other people. Yeah, we'll have skills in certain areas, but we may also have a few deficiencies, and we might be able to pick up some best practice from other people. So working with others will really help us evolve as practitioners to deliver the best quality teaching and learning we can. I've already touched upon why and when we might be working with other people, but let's just go through the specific different roles or different people we might be working with. Lots of organisations will have a SEND department. That stands for Special Educational Needs or Disabilities. You may also have a SEND Co, which is the coordinating officer for all of this, the person with that overarching responsibility. And it might be that learners have got specific educational needs that the SENCO has got some training in that they can pass on to you to help cater and include that learner better. You may have candidates whom English is a second language, so you might have specifically trained practitioners in the organisation, EAL tutors that could maybe have more than one language that they speak to help develop your learners' written and spoken language. You're probably going to also have a pastoral team in the background. They could cater for a range of different things, from just having a point of contact for well-being, or they could be helping with financial matters if your students and their loans haven't come through or whatever it is. So they could help with financial support if learners' student finance hasn't landed or whatever it may be. The pastoral team should be able to offer some assistance, or just be a professional that they can report concerns to if they need to. You may also be working with or alongside educational psychiatrists. Your SEND department might need to outsource some additional support from your local authority, for example, and an EdPsych might need to come in to do some assessments on your learner to help us as practitioners better include and cater for their needs. But why? Well, we're not experts in everything, and it's not expected that we are. So that's why, in summary. Right, boundaries then. So as a teacher, as a practitioner in education, we have to have personal boundaries that we don't overstep, and we make our learners aware of these as well. Should we, as a teaching practitioner, accept a friend request? Should we like a learner's comment or share a learner's post? I mean, make sure that doesn't stop you from liking, commenting and sharing this content on YouTube, don't get me wrong, but normally if you're in a professional role, you wouldn't do any of that. You would keep it professional, don't engage outside of school hours, and don't do it using personal accounts, personal technology, personal emails. Keep it all within the company for transparency and safeguarding you as practitioners as well. Have strict working hours. Emotional well-being of practitioners as teachers is really important. Just note that if you regularly get into the habit of replying to emails at 7:30 in the evening, then your learners will probably expect it more frequently as well. So yeah, you're creating a rod for your own back, essentially. I've already talked about ensuring you use the correct contact methods. You're definitely not giving out your own personal phone numbers. If you have work phone numbers, that might be normal, but make sure it's switched off outside of your normal working hours. You don't want to be dealing with things like that whilst you're on holiday. You need to have good time management as well. If you spend too much time as a teacher helping a learner, helping one of your students find more appropriate accommodation because they've disclosed to you that they're not in great condition or whatever it may be, you're not going to have time to do that and plan lessons and mark and give support to the rest of the group. So when it comes to time management, if you overstep your boundaries, it could impact you and your time. So let's look at professional boundaries then. It comes down to what we talked about earlier and having the right expertise for the job. You're going to have very distinct job roles, hopefully, in organisations. And if we overstep that, then it could be upsetting other people, just as a small example. We're going to make sure our communication is appropriate. We're not writing emails that contains too much jargon or acronyms that nobody understands, or it's a bit slangy, whatever you want to call it. It needs to be formal, to the point, professional communication. We need to report any concerns. There's no point if you have a safeguarding concern, or you have you believe that somebody might be at risk of radicalisation or whatever it is, you've got a clear chain of command to follow. You will have training on this, guarantee this if you haven't already, and you've got to make sure we're reporting it to the people whom are responsible for that, to ensure everything is fully accountable. Well, thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you found it useful towards your qualifications or just general CPD, please give it a like. If you've got any comments or any horror stories that you wish to share with other practitioners, then obviously keep it anonymous, but it's always interesting to read what other people are going through. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.